Y'all ready to rock roll? Y'all ready? Okay. I'd like to call to order the Trotwood-Madison City School District work session, September 5th, 2019, to order here in our board offices. Mrs. Allen, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Scarce.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore.
Yes, the meeting has been called to order. Please join us for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and I have a second. Are there any changes? Okay, there are some changes, and I'm looking at some of the items. Ms. Jeter Freeman has arrived. Good evening.
Good evening.
Under board report, item 3, A and B, action will not be taken. We are looking at items on the agenda for amendment. Any other additions or changes? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Scarce,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Ms. Vanessa Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, the agenda has been adopted. First item up, executive session. I need a motion to go into executive session to prepare for conduct or reviews, negotiations, or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment per ORC 121.22 G, 4, and B, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual per Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Mr. Scarce,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman.
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, and no action will be taken. Okay, we are out of executive session at 7:01. We will reconvene into our regular work session. Next items up is item 3, which is the board report. The board report, item A, was the resolution to approve the negotiated agreement between the Trotwood-Madison City School Board of Education and the Trotwood-Madison Education Association for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Or 2022, thank you. In addition to that, item B, which was the resolution to approve the same provisions and fringe benefits to district employees that are not represented by the Trotwood-Madison Education Association as provided to bargaining unit members for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Those items were amended with the adoption of the agenda. And originally, there was action, and they were amended where no action is going to be taken. I want to be very transparent about these two items. And Mr. Howard, I would like for you, first and foremost, to, since you were part of that negotiating team, to share a little bit along the lines of the decision that was made and why.
Sure. Trying to pull it up. From the standpoint of just being transparent, we all know and understand that there has been some quick transition with regards to this seat that I sit in now, and there was some overlooking of some procedural processes, some things that we needed to do with regards to some information that the board should have received about the contract. The change with the MOU, some of the language, the board had not received that information. So I am going to sit here in this seat and take ownership of the fact that through the transition, the fact that was probably something that was overlooked did happen. So, our immediate goal is to ensure that we assure our staff members and our families and our community that we're going to get a contract done. We're going to get it done. We just want to give the board time to look over the contract. The board did not receive the contract until today, which is not good process. It's not good process. And unfortunately, through this process of transition, that was something procedurally that was overlooked. And I'll take the ownership of that. I mean, there's a lot of things at this point right now that I'm trying to make sure I don't overlook. But, through this process, we did not provide the Board of Education with the information that they needed to make a decision. So with all that being said, I think we're still in a very, very, very good place, but the board needs time to look over the contract. And that's the sole reason for pulling it from the agenda.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, this board wanted to have this negotiated agreement done in a timely fashion, and timely would have been May. We're in September, and we've gotten to a point where the collaboration has happened, ratification has happened, and what's important for you to understand is how irresponsible and negligent we would be as a Board of Education to make a decision on something that we have never seen and that was not communicated to us with changes. I don't think that anybody would disagree that in order for us to be an effective district, we talk about the professional learning community, and collaboration is on top of that. We have to mirror that. We have to model that. And again, to be in a position where we all want this. I don't believe there's a person in this district that does not want this contract done, but it's got to be done the right way. That's the only way that this board will operate, the right way. We're not going to be hasty. We're not going to be rushed. We're not going to not do our due diligence and verify information, check all the I's and cross all the T's. We're not that board. So in order to do a good job for the district, for staff, and to make sure and ensure that our kids are where they need to be, we are going to take our time and we are going to review, we're going to verify, we're going to check, we're going to ask questions, we're going to have those questions vetted, we're going to get the documentation and the information that we need, and we are not going to act in just a rash, a rush to do anything, especially when we don't know what we're even voting on. This board, the information was not known to this board. So I think we want to make that real clear. And we want you to understand where we are as a board. Any other comments? Next item. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
No problem.
I do want to say one thing. We are adding this to the agenda for the.
For the next, yes, we are. And we're doing that in good faith because now we have the information as of what, how many, 30 minutes, 45 minutes ago, all right? We now have the information, okay, that we can look at. Not only do we have the original information that we were in agreement to, we have the additional memorandums of understanding. Really hard to pass a vote of understanding when you have no understanding. So again, thank you for the documentation, Mr. Howard. And the 19th is our next board meeting. It is our regular session. This item will be up on the agenda at that time. Next item, we have presentations. FY20 grants update. Lisa Minor and James Corbell.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Howard, Treasurer Allen. Thank you for the opportunity to bring to you the grants update for fiscal year 2020. I'm here with James. We work as a collaborative team with the Treasurer's Office. I'll be going over the planning and programming side, and he will be discussing the budget side. An overview of the grants we will go over today are the auxiliary and non-public services, consolidated state and federal, the competitive grants, and additional state funding that we'll discuss.
All right, so the first grant is our auxiliary services. These are the funds that are allocated to our non-public Mother Bruner. So we were allocated $172,000, $654.50. Just a way that we've kind of separated the funds this year. $122,506.83 will be going towards purchase services. This will take care of the retention of the teachers, and also will also fill their nursing contract. Their 22,000 of it will go towards supplies, which will pay for office, nursing, textbooks, workbooks, and other subscriptions that they need. And then 28,000 will be going towards technical purchases, some computers.
Our next grant is our early childhood education grant. The money is to offset the total enrollment, and districts must reach a certain targeted enrollment for the to remain compliant. So right now we're sitting at about 38 students, and our purpose is to provide early learning opportunities to students in order to support kindergarten readiness goals. Some of the services that we pay for with the early childhood educational grant is classroom teachers and paraprofessionals. We also are 5-star rated, a lot of professional development that allows us to be 5-star rated through the programming. We have a partnership with Preschool Promise that provides a lot of kindergarten readiness workshops as well as free events to our families. And we actually collaborate with other early childhood centers and home care providers.
Our goal this year was our strategy this year was to channel as much of the funds allocated towards salaries and benefits. This will be a good strategy. It'll be a lot easier to manage this year. So the way this budget has been set is $180,000 will go towards salaries, and that'll take care of our preschool teachers, and then the remaining funds will go towards their benefits.
We have another grant of high schools that work that is designated to provide specialized professional development to our high school. It allowed them to travel to a conference and they'll have other workshops throughout the year.
So 100% of those funds will go towards the professional development for these teachers.
Our next one is our grant, IDEA B grant for special education. And it's designed to provide support to our students and teachers serving our students with disabilities, professional development materials, resources, and to increase overall achievement and success for those students. We pay for our intervention specialists, paraprofessionals. This year, we hope everyone has a chance to visit our new sensory room at the Early Learning Center, designed to service students with autism or other sensory needs. We also have supported the special education classrooms with instructional materials and software.
All right, so $480,000 will be going towards salaries. This will take care of our special education paras, our instructional, or our intervention specialists, our teachers, and some of that will be going towards non-public, who I believe is a speech therapy person. 183 will be going towards the benefits to take care of those individuals, and then 15,000 will be going towards purchase services, 5,000 towards classroom supplies. I apologize.
So the next one is our big grant, the Title I grant that supports reading, the purpose of it, and we'll go over all of the grants have a certain designation of what they're used for, and we have to monitor that closely. That it's designed to improve student achievement in reading, math, and other academic supports. Services provided in Trotwood, pre-K to 12, elementary school counselors, student encouragers, restorative justice personnel, summer programming, after-school intervention supports, behavior interventions, classroom reduction, which allows us to have paraprofessionals in every kindergarten room, and services to our non-public schools.
So just under 1.3 million will be going towards the para salaries, the guidance counselors, social workers, student encouragers, the restorative justices. Just a little under 550,000 will be going towards the benefits of those individuals. And then $234,000 will be going towards the purchase services. These are contracts we have with the ESC for literacy coaches and math coaches, and some additional contracts with them.
So our early childhood, this is a smaller grant. All of it goes towards a partial salary for a teacher.
Yeah, and you can see that it's all going towards salaries and benefits. We have 13,575.
The 6B restoration is another one that goes towards preschool services. It was additional dollars that came in this year, and we'll use it all towards instructional services, supplies, and supports for those classrooms. So Title II is our professional development grant that provides high-quality professional development for our teachers and principals and staff members. And some of the support services, as we said, job embedded PD, we did the Leadership Academy with it, leadership training. It allows us to provide College Credit Plus, helping to support that with additional training and support services for our high school. We also were able to expand our gifted services and making sure that we have the training. We really increased our AP classes at the high school, and we used professional development dollars from this grant to get those teachers trained this summer so we could add those classes at the high school.
And you also added at the high school, gifted advisory period
Yes.
for once.
And so we've been able to expand our gifted services by channeling these dollars towards making sure we have teachers with the credentials to teach AP.
So we're going to be, we've budgeted $10,000 for retention and recruitment. $104,000 have been set aside for purchase services, for professional development, travel, coaching, and for our non-publics as well. And then $35,000 will be used for supplies.
Our 21st Century grants are one of the competitive grants we have. The purpose is to provide high-quality before and after-school programming, focusing on academic achievement, youth development, and parent involvement. Our nonprofit partner is the Trotwood Library. And these are all the services that we provide to our K-5 students that are involved in the 21st Century Grant, before and after school programming, STEM enrichment activities, literacy enrichment, music technology, digital literacy, nutrition and wellness.
How many more years do we have the 21st Century Grant? 2
more years.
Okay,
So this year and next year.
okay.
However, I believe next year is reduced. So $232,000 will be going towards salaries for paras, teachers, and clericals. 54 for benefits of those individuals. $83,000 will be going towards purchase services for engagement, field trips, enrichment, curriculum, and Dr. Stock. Supplies, $10,000 for our STEM program and incentives.
Is it going to be available for renewal after those 2 years?
Yes, we could reapply
Okay.
as an option. Our Title IV is really the holistic, to educate the whole child. And so it came out originally under the Obama administration, but it provides districts the opportunity to use funding towards the arts, towards culturally responsive teaching, towards opportunities that formally with Title I we weren't able to use. So we've used it in a variety of ways. So we'll go to the next slide. And some of the ways that we've used it is to expand our alternative education program. We also increased programming in music education, art professional development, resources for the visual and performing arts. You all remember the Wiz and some of the other events that have been happening in the arts that we're proud of, and we've used some of these services, these resources for that. We've increased STEM programming where we have a STEM class. We started it last year. In the middle school, we're continuing it this year. We also continued the underwater robotics and the Lego League. We're able to use these funds towards those events. And obviously, we provided the culturally responsive. We're in about year 3 of that type of training.
So $73,000 goes towards our STEM instructor and associated benefits as well. Purchase services, we've set aside just under $8,800 for our non-public, and then just under $40,000 for our supplies with Apex, art resources and materials.
So this next one, you remember at the beginning, I talked about additional state funding. So Governor DeWine is offering all districts something called Wellness and Success Funding. And these are the allocations for fiscal year 20 and 21. Purpose is to provide student wellness and success funding on a per pupil basis to city and local accepted school districts based on students who are enrolled in the district. So if you see on the next screen, these are the requirements. These are the allowable expenses under the wellness funds. It's a variety from mental health to services for homeless youth, community liaisons. It's a whole listing of choices that we'll have once these funds come in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Very good, thank you.
I do have one question. It was previously stated at some point in time, that the 21st Century Grant is something that isn't completely beneficial to the district. What is your opinion about that?
My opinion is, I think it's a very good grant. I think a lot of people shy away from it because of the management piece they have strong accountability. So if they say you're supposed to have youth development, health and wellness, nutrition, academic interventions and supports, they really monitor that, because traditionally some nonprofits would get those funds and not use them exactly the way. So a lot of people shy away from it because they don't like the accountability. I think it's a wonderful grant that allows us to partner with the city as well as other stakeholders. And we've been able to bring some wonderful enrichment opportunities to the children in Trotwood.
Thank you.
October 14th, right, is our target date?
Yes,
Right.
yes, we're looking forward to kicking it off.
Do we have the before and after school set up?
Yes, and that's part of the 21st century. It's the breakfast, lunch, breakfast and dinner. And we have a really nice partnership with the Ohio State Extension, and they bring in the nutritional part. Darren Bell, a Trotwood grad, has a very engaging music technology, and the library increased their support by giving us 2 days of literacy enrichment. Have gotten stronger through the years.
You said that this grant is going to expire at the end of next year, and
Yes.
we can reapply.
Yes, that will be an option.
Okay. To your knowledge, how is the success rate for applying to have it renewed or extended? How's that?
Well, it was highly competitive for this grant when we applied.
Okay.
And we were awarded 2 grants, so we were really proud of that. We actually have one for Westbrook on its own that has a STEM focus, and then the K-3, so we were fortunate. We've been identified by the state and by the federal branch of 21st Century as a place for people to visit and observe. We've been recommended to provide support to other local agencies who are applying for 21st Century grants. And so we have a pretty good reputation in Trotwood for running it the way it's supposed to be. Hopefully that gives us an advantage when we reapply, if we choose to reapply.
Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned something October 24th, did you say, or October 4th?
14th.
14th, what is that?
That's when we're planning to open.
Kickoff.
It opens, and it'll begin the before and after school. There's license, that's the compliance pieces. There's specialized training the staff must go through. There's license approvals that they must go through in addition to what we already do for the district. So we'll be ready to open officially October 14th.
Ms. Allen, have we used up our, whatever it is in our contract with Catapult? Because that's definitely something that we should be promoting.
Marketing piece?
Yes.
Marketing piece. We had 65,000 left over to spend this year. Off the top of my head, I'm positive we haven't spent all 65,000, but it was $65,000 this year to complete the $100,000 spend that you guys had approved.
That definitely needs to be something that they market. So I would suggest that we get in contact with them. And I mean, that's a huge benefit for our area, especially given the circumstances. So we need to be able to use those benefits to our advantage.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, presentation FY20 budget update. Janice Allen.
The presentation actually is, I uploaded on your screen. I do have a PowerPoint for anyone that just wants to write on. Okay, so I am pleased to present to you guys the general fund piece of this. They just went over the grant side, and this is the larger side. This is the general fund side. And so I wanted to go a couple slides just to kind of talk to you about the budgeting process, and then we can look at the things that I put in front of you. So what I did is I wanted to explain again how this actually evolves. And so generally when I file either the May 5-year forecast or the October 5-year forecast, our budgets all should be aligned basically with the 5-year forecast. So once that is approved, our budgeting, the budget for general fund is then finalized. Then the appropriations come to the board for your approval. And then obviously every month, then I put together a financial packet to see how we're doing in terms of how we're measuring up against the 5-year forecast. So I just wanted to put that slide in front of you so we could just, so that I could just talk about how that process should work. The next piece is the budget document preparation. And I said the superintendent and treasurer should, in collaboration with our building administrators and department administrators, align and answer these particular questions. What type of input would be needed in order for you to put together your budget? Identify some of the new initiatives to increase student achievement, any new staff requirements that a department and or building might have, and then obviously how the initiatives are going to be measured. Because we always talk about evaluation, we should always be evaluating any purchases that we have to see if those things are being effective. Then we get to the actual budget document. Back in FY15, when the Ohio Department of Education came to our district, they strongly encouraged the financial end of things to develop a comprehensive document that included our goals, the objectives, and the criteria for measuring our budgets. And in FY15, that was the first time that we actually did this. So I think this is the 5th book that we've actually put together for general fund. Just the highlights that are in the book is, obviously it's just general fund only. Every school department and district-wide budget is included. And then obviously the information in here also talks about the 5-year. So I'll go over that again in a second. The next steps that I would like to do is obviously more training. The more training individuals know, the better it will be. So what is a budget and how it ties into the 5-year forecast? I explained that before. What is the new budget document? And then the USAS system, and that's the Uniform Accounting System. And that's all the account codes that we use so that you can't buy, and I'm just making this up, object and materials and supplies, which is object 5. You can't do a contract under object 5 because object 5 is materials and supplies. So we have to make sure everything fits in this big puzzle. And so then when we run reports, I can actually state how much we spend on salaries and benefits, how much we spent on purchase services, materials and supplies, and capital outlay. The next step, obviously, is to continue to monitor these budget numbers, and we do that on a weekly basis. And so my staff always laughs at me because I get them confused. Either it's the detailed requisition, I think it's detailed requisition, right? Detailed requisition report. My staff actually looks at that, and if the budget isn't aligned, if the budget, that account line is over, then we make notes. We call the secretary and or that administrator to let them know that that budget is out of line. After we do that, then I sit down, and I've sat down with Marlon every week, and we just go through this, and that gives the superintendent the opportunity to look at what's being, what requisitions have been put on in terms of the academic arena. And so there's questions, and we go back and forth on that just to make sure everything is aligned. Obviously, we'd like to complete this budget document by September. Normally, I'd like to complete it by the end of June so that we can have it July 1st. But we were a little behind this year. So that's the ultimate plan, is to complete the document by September. And then just review our district review report from ODE to make sure that all the financial issues that they have identified have been complied with. So the last thing I wanted to show you is the book in front of you. And just to quickly go through it, the book obviously starts out with a letter from Marlon and myself. And it talks about the goals, the 6 goals that the board has implemented. And those are the things that we want to look at and make sure what we're spending measures to our 6 goals. So that's the first page. The second page is the 5-year forecast that was passed back in May. Obviously, we will be revising that May 5-year forecast, and they have now, it's not October anymore, it will be in November. So we have another month to actually prepare the 5-year forecast. Page 3 is just the district staffing plan. That's 18, it goes from 18 through 23. On there, just look at that. And those are just, some of those are projections, some of those are actuals. Then on page 4, it actually breaks the budget down into the different objects. And when I talked about 500 for materials and supplies, so here you have salaries and wages, you have benefits, you have purchase services, you have supplies and materials, capital outlay, other expenditures, and then transfers and advances. And this gives you an historical history, 2018 actual, 2019 actual, and then the budget actually for 2020. So that can give you some comparison. We talked about today that we're really looking to reduce the expenditures, and you can see from 2019 actual, it has 43.9 million. Our projections for the budget is somewhere around 41.3 million. So there is a reduction there. Then I sliced it a different kind of way. I sliced it in the function areas. So what the functions are, your 1100s are, we want to align most of your expenditures to the 1100s. And what the 1100s is instruction. And so everything we do, and Marlon as the acting superintendent, I have heard several times, more than once, that we are focused, everything that we are going to do is going to be focused for kids. And so that's what we try to drive the majority of our money spent there. And you can see the majority of the money is the $19 million of the budget is allocated to that. And then the other functions are fiscal is 2,500, site improvement services 5,200. And then it just gives you, on page 6, gives you a kind of comparison on May actual, May forecast, and then the budget. And you can look at that. And then the next ones are the boards, budget, superintendent, the treasurers, you know, the curriculum, human resources on page 25. Then we have a not new, but he said special education department and pupil services. Operations is on page 35, starting with operations and maintenance is page 39. Technology is 43. And then after that is all the schools. So we have ELC, Madison Park, transportation was before that, and then Westbrook Village, middle school, high school. And then the very last budget is your district-wide budget. And what the district-wide budget, that captures a lot of things that are district-wide. So one of the main things that it captures is the $4.6 million that we transfer from our general fund budget for community schools. And so that's on page 78. And that gives you a couple of some highlights, and then obviously the last page is your names and
That's on what page?
the district-wide budget, that's on page 78 at the back, all the way at the back.
Oh, well, it ends at 77 in my book.
77.
And that's the highlights. FY 2020 budget highlights.
what this is?
I must be missing a page.
Yeah.
I don't have a 78.
Okay, so we looked at that because you have 78, and you have a 78, and then 79, the last page would be 79.
This ends at 77.
Okay, so there's a page.
Yeah. What we can do, I mean, this is a lot of information. We will have a retreat,
Okay, yes.
and then we will sit down and we will go through these appropriations and the budgets at that retreat with more specific detail on spending.
That's a great suggestion. We've normally done that, but I thought it would be beneficial as they talked about the grants to also talk about general fund. So that's a great suggestion. We will dive into that and I'll make sure the books have all the pages.
We'll have all the pages.
Are these available to everybody?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So what I did today, every administrator got their copy. We will be then going out to the schools to give the clericals their copies. And then obviously we've made extra copies for anybody that wants them in my office. So anybody, and even if we have to make more copies, Mr. Stairs, we'll be more than happy to do that. But we're trying to be as transparent as possible so the community can see our spending pattern.
I think these should go in book bags with kids to go home to parents.
I know that we've always made these available to anyone who wanted these. And as a matter of fact, what we need to do is look at putting this on our website, letting people know
Yes, we've done
that it's available,
Yes.
our Facebook, our social media.
Absolutely, yeah. And then when individuals do call, I actually can send an electronic copy to them as well.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Allen? All right, thank you. Okay. Next items, treasurer's report.
Could you give me a second, President Moore?
Oh, yeah, she's got 8 minutes.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, treasurer's report, 5A. There is approval, or just for information, approval of meeting minutes from August the 1st, 2019, August the 5th, 2019, and August 15th, 2019. And this again is for information only, and I will ask for approval at the business meeting on the 19th. 5B, I'm asking for action. And the reason why I'm asking for action is because there's 2 changes I needed to make. And one of them was the High School That Works grant, the Fund 461 that they talked about. We got that money, but we can't spend the money until obviously you all approve it. And so I needed to have that for action tonight so that they could go on and put those contracts on the system. The other change, and I highlighted that in yellow, was Fund 439, which is public preschool. I reduced that to $282,876.81. That does include the expenditure from FY19 and FY20. I'm sorry, I increased it in FY20. The state gives us $236,000 for that grant. That is for 59 preschool slots. Eligible preschool slots. And so as we go through the year, if we don't have those, we have to basically send the money back, and we had to do that this year. So we're really monitoring that so that we can, in the middle of the year, know how many eligible students, and so that we can adjust the budget for that total, and we won't have to send any money back to the state. And so those were the two things that I changed, and so everything else was exactly the same. And so I'm asking just for approval for tonight for those, that change to update the appropriation document.
Thank you. I need a motion for Treasurer's item B, resolution to approve the FY20 amended appropriations as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and we have a second. Any questions? My only question is, how much money did we have to send back?
$87,000. And we had, off the top of my head, I can get the specific numbers, but that would equated to, it's $4,000 per student.
And so,
Yeah, so I think it was 39, if I'm off the top of my head, somebody tell me. I think it was 30 something.
Yes.
There was 30,
It was.
34 students, and we got funded for 59 students, and we only, there was only 34 eligible students. There's the eligibility criteria for that. We could have 59 students, but they have to be eligible for this particular grant, and it's the poverty guidelines and that kind of thing. So, there were only 34 eligible poverty guideline kids that met the criteria for the grant.
I don't have a question. I just have a statement. You know, we pulled, and I have said this before, we pulled the agreement or the contract, the negotiated contract for the teachers off the agenda because we just got it today. And, you know, I understand that there are certain things that we have to vote on, but even when I said this before, I don't feel comfortable voting on things that I have never seen. And if we're asking for action, I understand that, but if we're going to put these processes in order, and if they're going to work for the advantage of the district, we have to follow them. You know, maybe I'm the bad guy today, but if we're going to set up systems, let's work by the systems. Now, if we, I mean,
Mr. Steele?
that's all I'm gonna say.
I agree. And I gotta ask you, Ms. Allen, why didn't we get this information previously?
We just received Fund 461, so there was notice that we just received it. So I wanted to put it on there so that they could then be able to spend the money. And so sometimes the timing isn't exactly right to line up with our meetings. And
Well-
sometimes I have to bring to the board at a work session an action item so that we can continue doing business. And so.
I'll say this. If that's what the process is going to be, then it needs to function or work within whatever the system is. So if whoever the money is for, if the money can't be spent until the board votes on it, or whatever the instance might be, then it just isn't spent until we have sufficient enough time to feel comfortable casting a vote for whatever that is. In this instance, it's the contract, or it's whatever the fund is, but just kind of in general, you know, that practice has got to stop. It's got to stop, you know, and if it doesn't fall in line with whatever the timeline is, it just doesn't fall in line.
We wouldn't turn money away.
Well, no, I'm not saying turn the money away. And to be quite honest, it ain't even about the money per
Right.
se.
Yeah.
It's about the process of it.
Yeah, I mean, if we came to that point where we had money that, you know, it had to be spent by a certain day, and if the board isn't meeting for another 2 weeks, if need be, the board would meet so that that money could be spent. You know, you'd have a special meeting, but, and this is what we'll further discuss when we have a workshop. And I think for the other one, we were apprised that we had to turn money back in.
Yeah, we knew.
Yeah, we knew that
It's
we
the
were
other
turning,
one.
yeah.
That I think you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
Mr.
and I
Spear.
just wasn't clear on how much money and how many students, okay? And, yeah, and that was,
Yeah.
High school that works, $5,000.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
yes, I mean,
That's the grant that she's
That is
referring
the grant that you had.
So that one can be delayed until, and
before,
approved.
so you all don't want to approve it tonight, then
What happens if we don't approve this time?
I would have to defer to my Lisa and James.
I'm not aware of when the next professional development will be. They had one in July that we were trying to make these funds work out for, but for some reason the funding just wasn't there in time. So I'm not sure when the next professional development will be, but we'll keep our eye out and get on the schedule, because that's mostly what the funds will be used for. It will be used for teachers or administrators to go out.
So they're not going to spend this tomorrow or next week or the week after.
Okay, so if you,
Correct?
if it's your pleasure, we can withdraw.
Okay, okay. Mr. Scares makes a very valid point, and again, this has already happened on the agenda, and moving forward as a common practice, we have to have the information prior to voting on it. That way we have an opportunity to review it, we have an opportunity to ask questions, and if need be, get data. So, motion is on the floor. We are going to roll through this, and let me ask you something. With that said, we'll go ahead and take the vote. This item can reappear, and then on the next agenda, if it's the pleasure of the board.
Fine.
Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bozeman,
No.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
No.
Mr. Andrews,
No.
Mr. Scares,
No.
and Ms. Moore.
No, motion does not pass. Next item up, superintendent's report.
Superintendent's item A, this is an acceptance of donations to the district. 3 donation memorandums. Westbrook Village donation of $1,000 from Maria Joseph for the purchase of school uniforms. Donation of $137.40 from Life Touch to the middle school for the principal's account. And then the last is a list of donations from disaster relief. There is a long list of individuals and the things that they have donated. And we summarized that. Ms. Jordan Isaac summarized all of that information for us. And we would like the board to accept all of those donations. This is for information. Yes, I'm sorry.
Quite an extensive list. However, we'll have the opportunity to go through these and also take a look at this. I mean, this is pretty, this is exciting when you look at the donors and the monetary donations and also the supply donations. But again, it really speaks to the heart of the community. It speaks to the people in the community. And again, we are not going to be turning anything down. It's good to have the information up front. Next item.
Item B is a request to approve the Westbrook Village Camp Kern field trip. The information is attached that discusses how the trip is funded, what the academic content standards are, and the activities. This is a trip, an overnight trip, and due to the time-sensitive nature of the trip, the date is outside of the parameters, but with some of the things that we've been through, we wanted to make sure the young people still had the opportunity to go.
So you're asking for action.
I would like to ask for action for this tonight.
Making a motion on the floor.
I move.
A second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Questions and comments?
So this is the trip that students have taken for years. Time.
My only question is, and they've taken this trip for years. Why are we just now getting the field trip? Or the item prior to the trip, and the trip is just in a few weeks.
As you can see, the original received date was August 20th, 8 days after school started. I don't believe we had a meeting until then. Between then and now. So I would only assume that
Timing.
the timing is just what it is.
The trip isn't until the 25th, 26th, and 27th of September, correct?
Correct. So it was received within a month of that, but
It was received on the 20th
yes.
of August.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? My only other comment is, because this trip is a trip that they take every single year, and there's a lot of planning that goes into the trip. If we could get this information earlier, and I mean received in earlier, so that it falls on an agenda that allows us the opportunity, because typically these things are on the regular meeting agenda, and then we would vote on those. In keeping with the precedent of getting information early and not late. And I even believe at one time, the board decided that we're not even taking any new items on the agenda. Do you guys remember that? We said, if we don't have that information in front of us, it does not go on the agenda. In some sort of way, it's kind of slipped back in. So again, and now that we're having our meetings, we're having a once a month, end of the month agenda meeting. That is with the treasurer and superintendent. When we sit down at those meetings, we are looking and planning these agendas. Those agenda items need to be brought forth. I understand when things happen and, you're waiting on a date for maybe a confirmation on something, but these type things, there's a lot of planning that goes on prior to a month before the trip. So unless there's something else that
Again, I would just, I can only say this for the time being. I would just like an opportunity to work with the principals and work with everyone to try to reaffirm processes, try to reaffirm procedures. It was time sensitive. I would definitely not like the young people to miss this opportunity. So, with that being said, yeah, I totally understand. I totally understand the concern. But, with this being an opportunity for the young people to attend Camp Kern, I wanted to make sure that we got it through.
Questions, comments? Being none? Alan, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Norman Skips,
No.
Ms. Moore, Ms. Bowman, Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Next up, Superintendent's report, item C.
Item C is a list of activity funds. This is for information this evening. Class of 2020, to raise funds for school activities for the senior organization.
Information only.
Information only, yes.
Are there any questions on the student activity funds? Okay, being none. Next item.
Superintendent's item D, this is this is again for information only, a resolution to approve the Catapult Learning contracts. These are the flow-through contracts that need to be approved every year for the private schools where students attend. Those schools are listed on the contracts.
That's for action, so you're just,
This is for action?
that's what it says.
No, this is for information, I'm sorry.
Okay, this is information only.
Yes, this is for information.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was just saying we can vote on it next time.
Yeah. Next item, if there are no questions.
Item E is a resolution to approve the personnel agenda. Ms. Martin, is there anything in particular? Okay.
And this item is for action?
Yes, this item is for action.
Under
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Agenda A, we have a classified, sorry, I wasn't prepared to read it. We have a certified resignation. We also have an administrative contract, a recommendation for a contract for a new teacher, recommendation for substitute teachers. Agenda B has a classified resignation, some additional classified staff that are full-time, as well as substitute staff.
Need a motion for superintendent's item E to approve the personnel agenda as presented?
I'll move.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Comments? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Scares,
No.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Discussion items and updates. Student enrollment and open enrollment. What are we looking like, Mr. Howard?
I forwarded the board some information via your email, as well as I do have a hard copy at your desk. It would be the white folder. There is a summary of our current enrollment and some information with regards to open enrollment. There are also two attachments. Attachment A1, which is included in the packet, gives you a total number of active students as of 9/4. Just highlight points as far as enrollment is concerned. As of 9/4, currently the enrollment, we are only down 5 students from last year, which is a very, very positive outcome considering the anticipation of loss of students due to the disaster. Open enrollment has also helped slow the loss of students by students that are leaving open enrollment for other districts. I've kind of given a little information on that as well. We currently have, if you make reference to the 5th page of the packet, it is denoted as attachment A2. I've denoted that there are currently 118 open enrolled students in the Trotwood-Madison City Schools. There are 109 that are open enrolled out to other school districts. So year to date, that gives us a positive of +9. So as you can see on that attendance summary, total enrollment as of 9/4, and again, that number will still continue to change based upon cleanup information. I'm sorry, I said 15. 15 students from 8/15 down 15. So as of last week, as of 8/15, the initial information I gave you, we're down 15 students due to the cleanup. So as we continue with the process of entering withdrawals, entering registrations, we're down 15 students from the initial number that I gave you. And year to date, down 5. I did say that correctly. As of 5/30/19, we had 2663. So we're down 5 students as far as enrollment is concerned right now. And again, under the circumstances, I think that's pretty good. So open enrollment has helped. It definitely has helped. We're still losing a lot of kids out, but that, you think about that open enrollment aspect, possibly saving 100 students to the district from that standpoint. One of the things I did want to discuss with the board is the fact that, we did have a hard date on open enrollment as far as ending. And I wanted to just kind of get some information on where the board what the board feels as far as shutting off that date for the 2019-2020 school year. There are always some current concerns after your initial enrollment period that you start to get some students with some different issues. I think we've evaluated the original processes. We had a lot of things going on, a lot of different things. We saw that open enrollment can definitely be positive for the district, but I think at this time we need to officially stop it, but under some extenuating circumstances, allow students to come in, but no longer advertise open enrollment for the 1920 school year.
We are not going to make that decision tonight. We are going to have a retreat and we're going to discuss extensively the pros and cons, where we are, and go from there.
Okay.
Next item, any questions about open enrollment or student enrollment? Next item, Five Rivers Health Center, progress.
Summary of Five Rivers Health Center, where they are as far as successfully raising enough funds to complete the construction of all the suites. The medical will be the first operational suite, with fundraising still in the works for dental and vision. The fundraising is solely for operational costs. Construction cost is complete. Now they're working on operational costs for dental and vision. Construction permits were approved and the contract was awarded to Ferguson Construction. Contracts in the last phase is being finalized with the estimated starting date sometime next month and a estimated initial opening of the facility mid-November to December.
And when that happens, we need to make sure that we have Catapult a part of that as a press release and grand opening.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on the health center? Next item, mental health services.
As far as mental health is concerned, where we are right now, we have received 4 proposals from 4 local mental health agencies: Samaritan Behavioral, South Community, Eastway, Paramount. Ms. Minor put a team together of staff to review and hear the proposals and the pitches. Then information from those proposals were sent to the building leadership for review. Upon compiling the data and the information, I plan on making a recommendation to the board for for a mental health service provider no later than October 30th for information, and then information and review of the contract, and then hopefully get mental health services going as soon as possible in the district.
October 3rd or 30th?
3rd, I'm sorry, first board meeting in October.
So what are some of the differences that they provide? Or just,
Yeah, I can ask Ms. Minor to kind of speak to that. She kind of led that review.
All four agencies have agreed to provide mental health therapists at every building. What stands out is one of them in particular will offer preventive services from preschool all the way to 12th grade and several free services. So there's one agency that stood out above the rest. And they are comprehensive, wanting to work with the leadership, brought up our PBIS program, wanting to make sure everything's aligned with what we're doing at the district. They were the only one that had a program for preschoolers all the way up to the high school. So there was one that stood out. And so we're still collecting some more information about the building and everything, but the committee feels very confident with that particular one.
and the building leadership was confident of,
Yeah, we had principals volunteer to review the materials,
Mhm.
and they've been giving feedback.
okay. Thank you.
And also just keep in mind that when the initial proposal comes in as far as a dollar amount, you always deduct the Medicaid billable expenses from that. So it may initially look like a large dollar amount, but once we go through the process of the Medicaid reimbursements, all of that money comes back within to the district, so.
In the presentation, can we see those next to each other? Is that possible?
Medicaid dollars.
Yeah, and then what the actual cost might be after that deduction?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do
We
that.
can provide that and compare to each other.
Thank you.
As you're going through this process, have you been able to see other examples of this organization's work and how effective it is?
And I have personal experience with actually all the agencies, having worked in other positions, and have talked to other districts recently about some of their services. One of the agencies provided services to us last year on the prevention side of it. And so was able to talk to some staff members that, and got feedback on how their staff interacted with our students and our staff. So that's been positive.
Okay.
Any other questions on mental health? Mr. Howard, transportation?
There's a summary as far as transportation is concerned, and you know, I want to be very clear and open and transparent as we talk about some of the challenges that we've run into with transportation this year. This has been so far a year like no other with reference to transportation. Attachments, I believe A4 and A2 and A3 gives you a total number of students that are on McKinney-Vento and a total number receiving transportation. Currently, there are 116 students that are on McKinney-Vento that are receiving transportation. Mrs. Starks, transportation supervisor, put a summary together for the board this evening. 116 McKinney-Vento applications for displaced students. 8 buses are assigned that start transporting up to an hour prior to regular route times and travel out of the district. Assigned buses pick up a total of 82 students. This includes pickup and drop off. Buses travel as far as Vandalia and Woodman Avenue. They also include stops in West Dayton, North Dayton, as well as Clayton and Inglewood. 4 district vans transport 29 students out of district, traveling as far as Miamisburg. The district has collaborated with West Carrollton School District to transport 1 student to the Montgomery County ESC. West Carrollton's transportation supervisor was gracious enough to provide that support. 4 students have requested and received RTA bus passes. And again, as I stated initially, the department was overwhelmed. And one of the aspects of that was the minute details is there was a misconception that students that were coming in open enrolled would receive transportation. And I spoke to that in my prior summary. And then just working our way through the minutia that created was a headache because we were receiving a lot of calls, a lot of requests for transportation for students that were on open enrollment. Once we got that cleared out, we focused specifically on those McKinney-Vento students. The applications have slowed down tremendously. We're at a point now where all 116 of those students are routed. They are all in school, and we are transporting them on a daily basis. But I do want to be clear, it was not easy. It's a process that, hopefully we never have to go through again, but it was our commitment to make sure that these young people get to school, and they are all in school at this point.
Questions? District customer service, next item on the agenda. This item was put on the agenda because of the extraordinary amount of calls that the board gets as a whole, along the line of nobody ever calls us back. Voicemail. I think I sent an email to you, Mr. Howard, or text, and I said, can you please check voicemail? Make sure that the voicemail systems are working and that people are getting their voicemails on return calls. We talked about customer service in the district probably a couple of years ago because we just had so many complaints from parents that they couldn't get callbacks, they couldn't get information, they had to jump through hoops to do anything with their children. And even when they come into the buildings, it wasn't friendly, parent friendly, sometimes not even student friendly. So this is something that we had worked on. Customer service is very important. And when we talk about getting back with folks that call in regards to their children, we can't get back with them 72 hours later. These are people's children. We can't get back with them 48 hours later. We got to get back with them at least within 24 hours. When we're talking about a child, I would like a quicker turnaround, even more so than 24 hours, because first and foremost, when parents are calling here, they're not just calling here to call here. And to not be able to get a response and not be able to have a callback or a check-in or something, it's just not who we are. So, Mr. Howard, you and I have been kind of going back and forth on what that looks like. And anytime I get issues, I send them your way, and I've gotten quite a few, and I've sent them your way. What processes are we putting in within the district? We have a lot of secretaries. We have a lot of secretaries. So I don't know how calls are vetted or anything along those lines, but boards should not get calls that they can't get a response. They can't get a call back. We should never get those kind of calls.
I understand the concern. I will work with the building principals to ensure that we will work through some of those concerns. Contrarily, I do want to say that on the contrasting side, some of the calls that you don't receive are some of the positive things that parents are engaging when they are dealing with staff. I understand that we were under some very turbulent conditions this year, and I'm not making excuses. Very turbulent conditions. I was down in transportation answering the phone myself at one time because as soon as the phone would hang up, somebody else would be calling, and then somebody else would be leaving a message. So I totally understand. I totally understand the concern. I am going to work with the administration to ensure that we are providing the best customer service we can. But I also want to identify that there are some positive things going on with dealing with parents. We've received a lot of positive emails, and I'll probably need to share those with the board a little more. But Yeah, there's definitely an intent to try to clean that up a little bit, and I'll work through that process.
What would that look like?
Well, it's starting with the principals and laying out some expectations for just some standard customer service practices. A few years ago, we had some customer service training that took place in the district, and just evaluating to see if we need that again. It's something that was relatively inexpensive. Working with Ms. Martin to see what options are out there, and just establishing and revisiting some of the processes that we had in place in the past that I think are efficient.
And not just in the buildings, but even here in central office.
All the buildings, yes, ma'am. Yeah, everybody. Mm-hmm.
Item F, district-sponsored school events and protocol. This item was of grave concern to the board. What was it, last Thursday? We had a athletic Hall of Fame event. Prior to that event, the board was intentional and deliberate on the request of what that event would look like. And one of those things were point blank, hands down, no alcohol at any school district sponsored event or no school event, period. No open bar, nothing. The optics are not good. It violates state and federal laws. If someone were to leave an event where we had alcohol and they got in an accident, do you realize what the ramifications could be for the district? Not to mention an event where, any school event, and there's children there and there's alcohol. And it just doesn't fare well to see district leaders, teachers, whomever, drinking at a school-sponsored event. We made it very, very clear. And again, we have to talk about that, because we're not asking, we're telling you there will be no alcohol at school-sponsored events. Anything with our name on it. So, again, I'm sorry.
Who approved the alcohol?
Prior administration.
Okay. Who paid for the alcohol?
It was a open bar, and the items were donated. It was not an open bar, it was a cash bar, excuse me. And a private donor paid for the alcohol.
Who was the donor?
I believe, you know what? I don't know. I'd have to find that information out.
The donor was Terry Logan.
It was Mr. Logan?
It was Mr. Logan.
Okay.
As in Minister Terry Logan? I'm sorry.
Okay.
May I have the floor?
Yes.
The alcohol at this event, to me, and I only speak for myself, is really kind of an underlining issue in the district. By statute, when this body of duly elected governing officials gives a directive or an instruction, it is not just figuratively the law, it is literally the law. And there are some in the district that every opportunity that they receive, and I'm not speaking of anyone in particular, that they attempt to undermine the authority and the direction of this body of governing officials. And we understand it is not our responsibility to educate, but being responsible for the 25,000 people who entrusted us to lead the district, it is our responsibility to ensure that there is proper education. But we can't provide what we have been duly elected to provide if the people that we are supposed to lead at every opportunity undermine, disregard, and disrespect the authority that we have as the Board of Education. And it's not so much us as individuals, but the seats that we sit in. Under any other circumstances in any other entity, the way this board is treated and disregarded and disrespected would be insubordination and grounds for immediate termination. Any place else, we couldn't go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and treat higher ups that way. You wouldn't be able to go to the city and treat people that way. We even get people that come into our meetings. These are our meetings. These are board meetings of this duly elected body. And again, no one in particular that come in and sit and churn and turn at the decisions that we make and the votes that we cast with some level of disrespect and disregard. When in return, if any of us came into your classroom and did the exact same thing, there would be a riot. Every person, and a lot of times we say, we have 2 employees. Well, that's not entirely true. We have 2 employees that report directly to us, but every single person in this district is an employee of this board. Our employees don't get to tell us to stay in our lanes. As the duly elected governing body of this district, every lane belongs to us. There's a scripture that says a soft answer turns away wrath. I attempt to say it as soft as possible. But if we're going to get to the business of educating children, there are certain things that just shouldn't happen. There shouldn't be staff members involved in who's going to be elected next in November. Politics is our business. And everything in the district falls on our responsibility. When we sit in these seats, we don't get the opportunity to say, well, we didn't know. Because the question then becomes, well, why didn't you? If we're going to get to the business of educating children, there just has to be a different level of respect for this body of individuals. And we need to work collaboratively to determine what is the best benefit for the children that we are supposed to lead. I don't think there's any board member up here that is going to, under any circumstances, make decisions that deliberately affect or mistreat children. That would mean I would make those decisions for my own children, and for Mr. Andrews' child, and for Ms. Bozeman's child, and for Ms. Freeman's grandchild. We don't make decisions because we're trying to go tit for tat or get back at somebody. If we're going to work together as a team, there has to be an exchange of respect. There just has to be. And I believe, and I don't speak for the board, that's the president's responsibility, but I think we have done our due diligence to make sure that the utmost respect is given to our staff. And as difficult as it might sound, we don't work for you. It is the other way around. And if by chance there are some in this district that just cannot seem to give us the respect that our offices deserve, maybe this is not the place for your employment. I yield my time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
With regard to the event, there was some follow-up conversation by myself. Again, I was not involved in any of the planning. I didn't know anything about that. Unfortunately, it did take place. There is some follow-up planning. There will be some follow-up with those individuals to ensure that if it is a district-sponsored event in the future, there will be parameters and guidelines that they have to follow. So, when I got to the place, I was surprised. Again, I got an agenda, and I was a part of the agenda for a brief second, but I do understand the concern, and it's something I would like an opportunity to work through.
One thing that you said if it is a district-sponsored event, anything that says Trotwood-Madison City Schools is district. Now, there have been organizations like the Trotwood Educational Foundation, organizations, maybe fraternities or sororities, friends of Trotwood athletes, that have taken on the charge for those type of events. Nowhere does it say Trotwood-Madison City Schools. If it says that anywhere, it is a district event. And I don't care if the board pays for it or if private donors or contributors, it's Trotwood.
And that's the discussion.
Because again, there was some talk about, well, it'll just be a high school event. No, it will not. It will come before the board. We will discuss, because again, if it says Trotwood City Schools, it's still a school event. So again, more discussion at the retreat along the lines of what those events look like. But for the record, because it was really interesting, because I was saying, please tell me we don't need a policy for this. We can't have policies for common sense stuff, like for every little thing. We would be policing constantly. There's no policy for common sense. I mean, there just isn't. But what we're asking is that, and what we're saying is that under no circumstances, I got nervous when I heard about the tailgate. Honestly, I was just like, and that's when I sent you the email. I got nervous because I know we were told one thing and then we show up and there's something else. And that is not appropriate. So, again,
Can I ask a question?
I know that you just, you came in.
The freshman tailgate?
When I hear tailgate, typically it's just, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay, I get it.
This when I hear tailgate, okay?
And was there beer there too?
No. I hope not,
No,
because then there would be some people that probably would have to leave.
We were passing out flyers and trying to get freshmen on the right track.
But when I hear tailgate,
I got you, okay.
And a school event, never did I think there would be an open bar, so I was just clarifying under no circumstances.
And there is policy already that speaks to that. And again, we have turned the page. I was not involved in that process.
And I just want, we know that.
And we're done. And we're done with it. And from this point on, I will make sure.
But we have said things before and we were done. And guess what? It still happened. So I'm making sure that we're real done.
Okay, well,
And we're final.
As long as I'm sitting here, I want to make sure that you guys understand I'll work through that.
Thank you. Anything about other things on district-sponsored school events or protocols? Being none, comments. Treasurer's comments?
I don't have any this evening.
Superintendent comments?
Very briefly, I provided a September superintendent's update. It is in your packet. I also forwarded to you via the electronic media device. I've included dates for September that are attached, dates to remember, my meeting dates. And again, my goal is to try to provide this to you every first meeting of the month, a list of things to do as I move through some of these things. I'll hopefully shrink this list, but ultimately I'm sure it's going to become larger and larger, but I am trying to work through this list. I've also provided a copy of a couple of the things that I'm trying to really infuse in our day-to-day. The first 2 weeks, every day, I provided a reflection of what I see as our ultimate framework for moving this district instructionally. My focus is working on developing a professional learning community. I provided some information about what that was. And also in your folder, I provided a copy of what I've identified as the RAM plan. This is, it's in its infancy stages. It is a focus on development of a professional learning community. Like for you to read it, take some time to take a look at it, and then I'm sure ultimately in our retreat we'll have an opportunity to discuss. There's also a flyer for the family reunion parade on your desk in your area. The district will be participating in the parade on the 28th, and we will also have a booth at the parade where we will be we'll be there to have a presence, be represented, interact with the city, make some positive connections, pass out some things, and just work together with the city to be a presence with regards to the family reunion parade. So
Are these the new dates?
no, they are not going to
Oh,
change the dates.
oh, they're not gonna-
They're not going to change the dates. And that's why I wanted to make sure you had that. Originally, we were talking about changing the dates, but vendors had already committed for those dates. So these dates are still firm as far as the family. Now, they may change the fireworks, but they are not going to change the dates of the parade and the smoke sizzle and the interfaith worship. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Board comments, Mr. Andrews?
I don't have any.
Thank you. Mr. Scares?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Ms. Bozeman?
I just want to real quick, just kind of, since we're just kind of making this transition over, just as a reminder, I'm not big on paper, so as much as you
I
can
got
give
you.
me, like, I mean,
I'm not either.
since my first day here,
Trust
the
me.
folders are not my style. So as much as you can give me electronically is the way I would like to go.
Love it.
So, less folders and paper is for me. And then also, again, I'd like to reiterate, when we think about these work sessions, even though I didn't say anything when we were talking about it, we do like to have things in advance. That's what the work sessions are for, really, for us to talk about them so that we can really talk about it and work through them so that we can vote. So it is really paramount that we do have that opportunity to do that. So the sooner the better. You don't want yours either. He
You
doesn't
don't
want
want
his
yours,
either.
you don't want the paper?
Okay.
All right.
I'll take these.
Hey, you know, with me, that's a cha-ching. Because
I'll take this.
I'm thinking about all those copies we run.
I'll take this. I mean, that's part of it too, what we did the board docs is also so we can show the
Right.
paper. It
Absolutely.
seems like we're still
Getting
doing the
back.
paper and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask this, is there anyone else that feels that way? Or is there anyone else that prefers paper? Because I have no problem sending it electronically.
I'm almost there.
This is almost there.
We got-
This is almost
They're
there.
working on me.
So that Tyrannosaurus Rex down. I'll make sure he still gets his paper copy. But everybody else,
No,
you still need paper?
I like this,
It's almost there. It's almost there.
Okay.
but I'm almost there.
Okay.
I still have a blank.
You know what?
Oh, yeah.
I don't need the paper, but here's what I'd like. I know that you said you send electronic copies. Is there any way to embed the electronic copies into the board docs for that particular meeting?
That'd be great.
That would be really good, because if we can do that, I can tie
That would be
things to
great.
things, because we just get too many emails.
Yeah, that would
Alright.
be great.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, if you
Then
could
it's
tie, like,
right
so
in
like
front
your
of you.
report, how you have.
Put it right there.
This, if it could be just
Right
right
there,
here.
Gotcha.
right.
Okay.
And if
Yeah.
you know, even on your comments, just put it
Yeah.
in there, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
And
thank
that's
you.
what I thought we were going to be doing, since that was, I thought, the reason why we went to board docs, so that we wouldn't have this, but we're doing both.
Again,
And so if we could just take this and put it there.
I am, as the kids say, with that.
Okay. Thank you.
I would like to eliminate as much paper as I can.
Absolutely.
thank you.
And to go with that, the budget books, I could have loaded those electronically if you would like that as well. And we can, one thing that Kim and I have talked about, once we leave this meeting, we don't like to put anything else on the agenda. So from now on, we'll try to get everything electronically on here, but we ethically don't want to put
Add
anything.
anything.
add
No, because we
anything
didn't
else
adopt
after
those
the
things.
fact.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Poston? Okay. Ms. Jeter Freeman.
Thank you all for staying with us this late, and have a great day and a great weekend.
Very brief. Again, thank you. Thank you for your patience. There's a lot of work, but it's still yet to be done. Thank you, Mr. Howard, for what you're doing. I know that there's a lot that you stepped into. However, process protocols, things that we are going to continue to work on. The professional learning community, one of the things that you talk about a lot is collaboration. And I just kind of want to piggyback on Mr. Scaris a little bit with some of your comments. We are a part of this team. As quiet as it's kept, because again, the teamwork makes the dream work. And I think that sometimes people think that the board is elusive and we're way over here, but we're not way over here. We are part of this team, and we bring value to this team. And so when we're talking about the team and we're talking about professional learning communities, we need to make sure that we don't exclude anybody in that conversation. Again, there's a lot that still needs to be done, even on the agenda items. We understand that there are items that are gonna just be those last minute items. That's just the nature of the beast sometimes. Personnel items are that way. We have to get teachers hired. We have to put people in place, and that you can't wait 2 weeks before you can put a person in a slot. 3 weeks, I'm sorry, thank you. You can't wait 3 weeks. You know, we need those positions filled, so we get that. However, we are trying to follow a process. And even with some of these items that we had never seen, you know, on the agenda, we used to have hand carries, okay? Or, you know, something along those lines, not just items that are in the agenda. A hand carried item, because when we begin to adopt the agenda, these hand carries are here, and then we can decide if that's gonna be a part of the agenda. And it's not on the agenda, and then, guys, all of these things are live. This is all real time. So when we have to vote no on something that we believe in, we really want to happen, but we've not been allowed and allotted the time to review the document or to even discuss the document, no discussion at all, just vote, it's disheartening. So again, hand carry, board decides if we're going to adopt the agenda with or without it, and we go from there. So again, just thank you. We appreciate you being with us. We will continue to trudge on, and good night, everybody. All right, I guess I need to adjourn first, right? All right, but I've done that before. Good night. I need a motion for adjournment.
I'll move.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second. Any questions on adjournment? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Judith Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Yes.
Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Motion passed.
Good night, everybody.